Good morning, everyone. Afternoon. I'm here since morning, so my. So, where did we stop the last time? Marathas structure. So, did we write about the Maratha structure? Huh. 1720 we have written till there. Okay. Okay. So, in the last class, when we had the discussion, we were talking about the Maratha structure of administration, right? And I was trying to explain you about the aspects of Maratha structure because of which what? That Marathas had the potential as well as the opportunity, but they failed to establish a pan-Indian empire. We had talked about this, right? Confederal structure of rule, disputes within the Maratha structures of administration, disputes between Maratha Sardars, that how the Marathas had introduced the Saranjami system of revenue collection, but the Saranjami system also failed to produce the desired results. So we had talked about all of that, and we'll discuss again. Abhi hum likhenge to it will become clear. It will be sort of a revision that what you have done till now. Okay. Now we had written till 1740. We had written about what? About the period from the time of Shivaji's death, right? Ji, volume. So, right one. This one. Okay. Is it better now? No? Just hold. वॉल्यूम के लिए भेजिए. They're coming in a minute. वॉल्यूम बढ़ा दो. Yeah, is it better now? Okay. So, basically, we had talked till now that how from the time of the death of Aurangzeb itself, from the time of death of Shivaji itself, the structure of Maratha rule firstly saw the two sons of Shivaji, right? Rajaram and Sambhaji and Rajaram, right? And then there was the succession dispute between Tarabai and So between Tarabai and Sahu, there was a succession dispute from 1708 to 1715. Ultimately, Sahu emerged victorious with the support of Balaji Vishwanath, who was a key aid in planning all of this. Ultimately, Balaji Vishwanath becomes the Peshwa or the deputy, and it was after the death of Balaji Vishwanath that you see began the period of Peshwas. Then we talk about Bajirao and Balaji Bajirao. Bajirao and Balaji Bajirao. And Bajirao and Balaji Bajirao both coming together would result in what? Bajirao and Balaji Bajirao both coming together resulted in the rise of the period of the Peshwas, where rapid territorial expansions happened, right? Where in north, from the Marathas, the rapid territorial expansion happened towards north and central India, right? And we had talked before how revenue sharing agreements had already started between the Mughals and the Marathas, like Chauth and Sardeshmukhi, etc. Right? वो सारी context हमने बात किया हुआ है, right? So we had talked about all of this. Now let's अरे ऑडियो के लिए बुलाओ किसी को. Okay. So there is some echo. You are having geography class apart from this. ये echo आ रहा है वो कह रहा है. Now is it okay? हाँ, अभी ठीक. So basically, what do you see is that it is in this period, that the period of Peshwas, that there is a rapid expansion. Now we have written till 1720s and 1740s, right? Now we will write beyond this, but before that you leave that space here, you leave that place, and we'll write firstly about the structure of Maratha rule, its problems and weaknesses. Okay. We had written subsidiary alliance and all. No. This is a separate topic. आप लिखिए. No, timeline we discussed. You give a separate heading. बताया था ना. नहीं अभी कुछ नहीं, आप लिखिए, हेडिंग दीजिए अलग से. Okay. Just leave this timeline. We will come back to this and we'll complete this. Right now, leave 1.5 page in the timeline that you were writing, and we'll come back to the structure. Okay. Now you can get a question like this. You can get a question like this, that despite having both the opportunity and potential, Marathas failed to establish a pan-Indian empire during the 18th century. Discuss. Okay. So to understand this, basically what you need to keep in mind is the structure of the Maratha. We say that why did they not form a pan-Indian empire is because of the weakness of the Maratha structure itself. So to answer this, you have to write about the Maratha structure. Okay. So you first, everybody's written this? So you can first write down, I'll dictate. The Maratha structure of administration was, everybody's written this, right? The Maratha, you have written, na? I'm dictating. The Maratha structure of administration was pretty similar. The Maratha structure of administration was pretty similar to whom? Mughals. And this was visible in first point, the political factionalism or groupism or disputes, basically political factionalism within the Maratha court in this point you will elaborate. Okay. Following the disappearance of Mughal threat, the Marathas, आप लिखिए मैं समझा दूंगा, अभी आप लिखिए, Following the disappearance of the Mughal threat, the Maratha Sardars started asserting more autonomy, started asserting more autonomy. 1760s onwards. 1760s onwards. Moreover, the conflicts between Holkars, Scindias. Okay. Moreover, the conflicts between Holkars, Scindias, Bhosles, and many others, but Holkar, Scindias and Bhosle, they are the ones we are more interested in. Following the conflict between the Holkars, Scindia, Bhosle, or following the conflict between the Maratha Sardars, that is the Holkars, Scindias and Bhosle, over the appointment of Peshwas, after 1761, क्योंकि 1761 में क्या हुआ था, that Balaji Bajirao dies. 1761 Balaji Bajirao dies and he is the last major Peshwa, after which there is a dispute amongst the Maratha Sardars and they want to do what? They want to have a say over the appointment of the next Peshwa. Rather than being disciplined by the Peshwa, they want to control the Peshwa. Okay, so that is what we have written, that after the appointment of Peshwas, over the appointment of Peshwas after 1761, in bracket you can write when Balaji Bajirao died. No. See, Balaji Vishwanath dies in 1719 itself. Then comes Bajirao, then comes Balaji Bajirao. मैं अभी लिखवाऊंगा, वो टाइमलाइन मैं पूरी करवाऊंगा बाद में, but अभी you keep writing this. Okay. After 1761, death of Balaji Bajirao. Okay. Close the bracket. Then the second point you write, the confederal nature of the Maratha political structure. The confederal nature of the Maratha political structure. What do we mean by confederal nature? It's something where the Maratha Sardars are more autonomous, right? Rather than having a strong central ruler, you are more autonomous. With the decline of a strong Peshwaship, with the decline of a strong Peshwaship, and the absence of any major immediate territorial threat, the Maratha Sardars aim to establish their own autonomous rule, in the Malwa region and central India. Is that point clear? Right? We discussed this point also before. Third point, you write. The the Maratha revenue administration system, the Maratha revenue administration system that is the Saranjami system, that is the Saranjami system, was pretty similar to the Jagirdari system of Mughals. So it's pretty similar to the Jagirdari system of Mughals, and often suffered from the same weaknesses. Okay. Within this point itself, you write, moreover, no active steps were taken to increase agricultural productivity and thereby increase revenue collection. Next point. The Marathas failed to establish a direct administrative presence in areas beyond Maharashtra. Their conquests would rarely go. Their conquests in the Malwa and in the Malwa region and central India. Their conquests in the Malwa region and central India would rarely go beyond the collection of Chauth and Sardesh Mukhi. Would rarely go beyond the collection of Chauth and Sardesh Mukhi. Next point. Chauth was 1/4 of the tax, Sardesh Mukhi 1/10 of the tax. I told you all of that, right? Now, the next point that you have to write is the Maratha expertise in the military sphere was primarily in guerrilla warfare. Was primarily in guerrilla warfare. Their superior military skills in the same point. Their superior military skills enabled them to rapidly expand. Their superior military skills enabled them to rapidly expand in North and Central. Their superior military skills enabled them to rapidly expand in North and Central India during the 1720s to 17 enabled them to rapidly expand in North and Central India during the 1720s to 1760s period, considered as the golden age of Marathas. Considered as the golden age of, yes, what happened? 1760 लिख लीजिए 1720 to 1760 not 60s. We have taste for nuance. Nice. Okay. So एक सेकंड अभी लिख लें पहले पूरा, फिर आपको मैं जो भी डाउट्स है मैं बताता हूँ. From 1720s to 1760. 1720 to 1760s period or 1720s to 1760, whatever you want to write. The rapid Maratha expansion was partly enabled also by the absence of any major military challenge in the region given that the Mughal decline was already in force or were already in action, you can say, or the Mughal decline was already in place. So there is no challenge to the Marathas. Next para. However, in this point itself, but next para. Okay. However, in the same point in the next para, however, when faced with a superior military opponent, that is the numerically larger Afghans, I'll explain this point, wait. That is the numerically larger Afghans in the third battle of Panipat. They suffered a crushing defeat. They suffered a crushing defeat, which busted the myth, of Maratha invincibility, which busted the myth of Maratha invincibility. Is that point clear? Now I'll explain this third Battle of Panipat in a minute, but just remember this much. Okay. Now we'll discuss this point in a minute. So now, conclusion you write. Conclusion you write. Thus, the inability of Marathas to establish a modern centralized state costed them dearly, it turned out to be a very expensive thing, right? So costed them dearly as they failed to make use of the power vacuum, as they fail to make use or as they fail to occupy the power vacuum in the subcontinent left behind after the Mughal decline, left behind after the Mughal decline, 1720s onwards. So that is why we say they had the opportunity and partly the ability also, but they failed to establish a modern state. Now this third battle of Panipat we'll discuss, and then it will become clear also what is written in the last point you have written. Okay. Now let's first discuss the third battle of Panipat. If you have doubts after that, we'll take. Okay. Now when we discuss the third battle of Panipat, the first thing that you need to know, there was a question in your mains examination already, that why so many battles were fought in Panipat. So that is something that we'll understand. We'll also discuss what was the cause for the third battle of Panipat and what is the significance. Okay. And to understand this, basically first let's understand why so many battles are fought in Panipat. Okay. Now, why so many battles are fought in Panipat? ऐसे आप offend नहीं होगा, ठीक? Don't get offended. India doesn't suit, my map doesn't suit your imagination. Just to give you an idea, right? So, जैसे आप बोलेंगे सर कश्मीर आपने जानबूझ के ऐसा कुछ. So basically, you see what happens, what triggers the many battles of Panipat. Briefly, you must know who all fought these battles. Okay, the first battle, the second battle, and the third battle. The first and the second battle are happening when firstly there is Babur and Ibrahim Lodi, the Lodi dynasty, and Babur, who becomes the formation of the Mughal empire. They are fighting. Okay, and in the early 1500s, right? And then 20 years later, you see that there is, after Babur, you see the young Akbar is trying to take back the control of, we don't need to get into those details right now, वो आप medieval India में पढ़ेंगे, पर मैं आपको इतना context दे रहा हूँ that the first battle was fought by Babur in establishing the Mughal Empire. The second battle was fought by the young Akbar at the age of 13, primarily to take back the control of Delhi and the areas around Delhi when Bairam Khan and others assisted, and basically there was a power tussle. Okay, so आपको वो detail अभी ज़रूरत नहीं है, but what you need to know, all these tussles are happening in and around Delhi. The third battle जिसके बारे में हम detail में भी बात करेंगे, that is also happening around Panipat. Now one of the first things to understand that Babur came from Central India, Central Asia, sorry, right? Came from Central Asia, and you see that basically, and this is one reflection, okay, that why there are many battles happening in Panipat. In the third battle, it is the Afghan invaders. Yeah. एक सेकेंड मैं सारे किरदारों पे आऊँगा, आप रुक जाइए. Afghan invaders. We are not I am right now trying to explain you why so many battles are fought in Panipat. Then we'll discuss third battle of Panipat. The Afghan invaders are there coming in the third battle of Panipat. Okay, both these times you see from India's northwest there is a attack. Because this is the overland connectivity route to Afghanistan to Central Asia. And this is where you see that one of the things is most of the invaders are coming from Central Asia or Afghanistan region through India's northwest. Now, a number of these, for example, in the third battle of Panipat, Afghan invaders are coming. Even before 1761, Afghan invaders came a number of times. Now, their aim in Delhi is in the middle of what? Yes. आपने geography में ये पढ़ लिया, Aravalli, right? So Delhi is in the middle of the Aravalli Ridge, and Delhi is a natural pass in the middle of the Aravalli Ridge. Okay, so mountain में passes होते हैं, mountain ranges में. Delhi is also a pass in the mountain range of Aravalli. आप बोलेंगे सर दिख तो रहा नहीं है mountain, so it has gone down because of centuries of degradation, right? जिसको क्या कहते हैं, weathering, weathering ही कहते हैं, हमें क्या? So basically it is a natural pass. Now in that context, what you see that Delhi was in a way the gateway to the northern plains. If the Afghan invaders wanted to plunder the northern plains, and the plundering of the northern plains was considered very valuable. Why? Because agriculture was productive. This was a fertile region. Agriculture was a source of wealth. Fertile agricultural land region, there is going to be surplus wealth in the region. So the northern plains had economic surplus. So these were all often the targets of Afghan invaders. And you see Delhi is placed geographically at almost the entry of this. Okay, because beyond this, except you have the Punjab and Haryana region, but you also have the Rajasthan and all these regions which is not agriculturally that fertile. Right? So that is there. Now, what do you see is that historically one is geographical factors why many battles have been fought in Panipat, because Panipat is close to Delhi, and Delhi is the natural pass which anybody would have to cross if they have to invade or reach out to the northern plains. There is not just geographical reason, there is another reason. Second time, and also in the first battle, when you see Babur is fighting against Ibrahim Lodi, against basically the Lodi dynasty to capture power in Delhi. The Lodi dynasty's seat of power is in Delhi. That is why they are also interested in capturing Delhi. Okay, Babur is interested in capturing Delhi because Delhi is also the seat of power, and Akbar had also the seat of power firstly in Fatehpur Sikri and also partly in Delhi. Okay, so most of the centers of powers either of the Lodi dynasty or either of the Lodi dynasty or of even the Mughals have been in and around Delhi. Okay, So that is there. So most of the seats of powers have also been around here. Agriculturally fertile northern plains region also is somewhere which basically begin from the Aravallis and the northwest. Basically you see the coming in of the Afghan invaders would find a natural geographical barrier in the form of Aravallis, and also more importantly Delhi being there, and also it was a seat of power. These are the two major reasons why a number of battles are fought in and around Delhi, and that has been Panipat has been the site because it is adjoining to Delhi and an area where there is a vast plain area. Okay, so that is why the Panipat region with their vast plains have often been a site of number of battles. Okay, these are the reasons why these battles have been fought in and around Delhi for a number of times. Okay, now let's discuss in detail about the third battle of Panipat, what caused the battle. Now to understand what caused the third battle of Panipat, what you firstly need to know is who all fought the third battle of Panipat. Firstly, the third battle of Panipat was fought between the Afghan invaders coming from India's northwest, and it was Ahmad Shah Abdali. Okay, the Afghan invaders coming from India's northwest, they were looking to plunder north and central India, and so this plundering of north and central India would directly challenge whose authority? Mughals' authority. And so obviously this is going to be a battle against whom? This is, yes, Marathas will come to, but this is going to be a battle against the central Mughal empire. The central Mughal empire was the one which was in charge in Delhi, right? So if Afghans are going to raid northern India in and around Delhi and all these areas, it will directly firstly come and challenge with the central Mughal empire. But the central Mughal empire is weak, and the central Mughal empire has entered into a revenue sharing agreement with whom? Marathas. So the Marathas are also going to be involved in this war, supporting the central Mughal empire. Now why is it the Marathas need to engage themselves in such a war against the Afghans? Because they are the ones who are getting the revenue, the Chauth and Sardeshmukhi, for a number of territories in north and central India, right? From whom? The Mughals. If they do not, if they say no, we don't want to fight against the Afghans, then the Afghans will plunder, the Afghans will loot North India, and if the Afghans will loot North India, they will take away the surplus produce. Mughals, Marathas ke liye kya reh jayega? Nothing, right? So it's one of the reasons why the third battle of Panipat happens in Panipat and not somewhere in Maharashtra. Because why? Because as the Marathas are expanding northwards, they are incoming automatically, or rather inevitably, in conflict with Afghans who are also looking to invade the same regions. It's so पहला जो आपके दिमाग में सवाल आता है कि सर पानीपत में ही क्यों लड़े? लड़ना ही था तो कहीं और लड़ लेते. Why don't they fight somewhere in the Maratha territory? Why? Because the Afghans are not coming here. The Afghans are also looking at northern plains, and the Mughals are also looking to expand and collect more revenue from the northern plain. The Marathas are also more interested in collecting revenue from the northern plains. That is why they are coming in conflict there, okay, and not anywhere else. So another reason for the third battle of Panipat is this to happen in Panipat is that as the Marathas sought northward expansion of their revenue collecting rights, it came in conflict with the Afghans who were also looking to plunder the northern plains, and that is why the battles are fought in and around. The third battle is fought in and around Panipat. Now, this is Central Mughal Empire and the Marathas are providing the troop support to the Central Mughal Empire. Why? Because they are the ones who are getting the revenue collection, right? And though it is the Mughal Empire which is actually in the direct conflict with the Afghans, it is practically the Maratha troops, because the Mughal Empire anyways by 1760 is an empire only in name. आपने तो 1757 में ही देखा है, Plasi. Then you also see that in Buxar, that how the Mughal Empire is very weak, right? So Mughal Empire does not have the ability to defend itself against the Afghans. They rely upon the troop support from Marathas. तो क्या है, मुगल्स और मराठास में भी भाईचारा है, ऐसा नहीं है. In the popular imagination, the Marathas are shown as the sworn enemies of the Mughals, or the Mughals the sworn enemies of the Marathas. Reality does not bear it out that well, but this goes ahead further. So though the central Mughal Empire and the Marathas joined hands together, other successor Mughal states like Awadh, and Awadh, you see Shujauddaulah. Shujauddaulah joined hands with Afghans. Why? Okay, because Marathas raided them so many times, or because there is Muslim bhai bhai. देखिए, कोई भाईचारा पैसे और राजनीति में, पैसा और पावर, क्या यही सबसे बड़ा भाईचारा है? Okay, and in that context, it's got nothing to do with so-called religious affiliation, etc. If there's any religious affiliation and loyalty, then they must side with the central Mughal ruler. Rather, Awadh is siding with Afghans. Why? Because the Marathas have raided, and threatened the Awadh state also with a number of plunders. Okay, and that is why in 1751, in 1750s also, for example, the Marathas had demanded Chauth from Awadh. When Awadh denied, they had raided Awadh's territories. So Awadh saw Marathas as a challenge to their existence and their interests, that they will constantly keep plundering, raiding, or threaten our rule. Okay, so Awadh already saw Marathas as a challenge to their interests, but Awadh also has no love for Afghans either, because Afghans have also plundered northern territories time and again. So it's not that there is any love for either Afghans or for Marathas, but the point is, who is a bigger challenge? Marathas. Why? Because the Marathas will constantly keep coming, raiding and threatening. Afghans will come once in a decade. The bigger problem is Marathas. So the idea was that if by siding with the Afghans, they could defeat the Marathas, they could kill two birds with one stone. One is that firstly, Maratha problem will be addressed. Secondly, by siding with the Afghans, at least the Afghans would not plunder Awadh. देखिए, ये foreign policy है. This is IR, but of 200 years ago. Okay, so in that context, you see that Awadh, Shujauddaulah, Awadh sided with whom? The Afghan invaders. The third is also Rohilkhand. Rohilkhand region is the region, if you look at Nainital, all of these areas, okay, northern India, of what you need know partly as Uttarakhand. That part, areas adjacent to that part is the Rohilkhand region, which is a small successor Mughal state also. Okay, Rohilkhand also, given their close links with Shujauddaulah, Rohilkhand also sided with the Afghans. Okay, and so you see the Afghans also built a coalition. The central Mughal ruler also built a coalition. The central Mughal ruler's coalition was with the Marathas, and the Afghan coalition was with with Awadh and Rohilkhand. Now the Marathas had also approached Awadh for becoming a part of their coalition, but Awadh explicitly refused to do so. Okay, so this is where Marathas का अब पाप का घड़ा भर चुका है. Okay, so that is something which is happening here. How is that in this battle, the third battle of Panipat which happened, you see these two alliances were pitted against each other, in which the Marathas in the third battle of Panipat, basically when the fighting ensued in this region, within a span of a couple of days, more than 50,000 Maratha soldiers were killed, and on the battlefield, and half the total number of Maratha generals were also killed in the war. Half the total of Maratha generals were killed in the war, and 50,000 Maratha troops were killed in the war. This was a major blow to the Maratha both military capabilities and prestige. Prestige that the Marathas till now had never been defeated, and now they are being routed by the Afghan forces, and that too in a hugely destructive fashion. So it was a blow to Maratha prestige, but it was also a blow to Maratha military might. It was a blow to Maratha military might as well. It was a blow to the Maratha military might as well. Okay. Now, it is in this context that you must remember this, that it is a blow to Maratha military might as well. And but then the first thing that will come to your mind is, sir, why is it that Marathas get defeated in the war? What are the reasons for Maratha defeats? The reasons are not very difficult to understand. Firstly, who has a bigger coalition? The Afghans. तो Maratha तो पहले ही foreign policy में दोस्ती ना बना पाए. If Marathas would have had friendly relations with others, they are plundering and raiding everybody, and are constant territorial threat and economic threat to all their neighbors. So they are basically resulting in the emergence of a coalition partly against them. This is again, you see, if in Mysore also this is what happened. Mysore also drove its opponents so far that they probably got into a coalition with the British against Mysore, rather than entering in a coalition with Mysore. Whatever alliances they tried to form, they did not last also, right? So that is one reason why the Marathas get defeated. There are a couple of other reasons also. What are these other reasons? The other reasons are that the Marathas had expertise in guerrilla warfare, and I told you guerrilla warfare last time also what it is, right? But guerrilla warfare required adequate geography to support its use. But the third battle for Panipat was happening in plains where the armies were pitted face to face with each other. There was no possibility of using the geography to the advantage by attacking the opponent with an element of surprise. ये तो आमने सामने की लड़ाई है, इसमें कोई छुप के वार करने का कोई context नहीं है. So that is their expertise was in guerrilla warfare, but here they were fighting in the plains. On top of that, they are facing the Afghan army, which is numerically also larger than that of the Marathas. So numerically भी वो ज़्यादा थे और plains में लड़ रहे हैं. Not a very good thing for the Marathas. On top of that, there is a third major issue. For one reason or the other, the Marathas moved ahead into wars with their families. The Maratha generals would often carry their large, not soldiers, but Maratha generals would often carry the large enclave with them, in which their wives, children, etc. would also go. So सुबह से शाम तक लड़ाई किया, शाम को आने के बाद खाना किया, chill किया. Okay, that basically what would happen is that fighting according to conventions would happen from dawn to dusk, and after that they would retire to their lives and etc. And basically the Marathas had to extend, and comes the other point, logistical challenge is what I'm trying to come out at here. That basically the Marathas had to extend their troops and food supplies and ammunition all the way from the areas under their direct control, that is in and around Maharashtra, to all the way to Panipat. This is more than 1500 or 2000 kilometers. Okay, where they had to extend their supply of troops, weapons, as well as food supplies, etc. And they are moving a vast enclave of women and children also. Okay. Now, firstly, now your question would be, sir, if it is a logistical challenge for Marathas, it is a logistical challenge for Afghans also. देखिए, जीवन में मैंने इतनी बार भारत को आज़ादी दिला दी है कि आपके जीवन में जितने सारे सवाल हैं वो मेरे दिमाग में भी आ चुके हैं. So, in the sense that when the Afghans, if it is a logistical challenge for the Marathas, it is a logistical challenge for the Afghans also. Then the problem is that the Afghans are getting their food supplies, their ammunition supplies partly from Awadh. right? Where the Marathas are finding no allies in them. So Marathas have to pull forward the resources through thousands of kilometers, which is a bigger logistical nightmare for them. So in terms of being unable to cobble up a regional alliance, in terms of being unable to address the logistical challenge, in terms of the military superiority of the Afghans, especially in a warfare in plains and being numerically larger, you see all of these are the reasons why in the third battle of Panipat the Marathas suffered a defeat. I'll come to you in a minute. Okay. Now, it is in this context that the Maratha defeat had a huge significance. And Shekhar Bandyopadhyay writes that the significance of the Maratha defeat in 1761 is A. It busted the myth of Maratha invincibility. It was B. A major military setback to the might of Marathas. And C. Most importantly, and this is this unique way of Bandyopadhyay's writing, where he says, and very rightly so, that the third battle of Panipat decided who will not form the next pan-Indian empire rather than who will. It decided that it sealed the fate of the Marathas. It showed that the Marathas were not capable and the weaknesses were completely exposed in the defeat. And because of which it became clear in 1761 itself that Marathas will not form the next pan-Indian empire. I repeat, it did not become inevitable in 1757 or 1761 or 1764 that the British will form the next pan-Indian empire. अब तक आपने इतनी हिस्ट्री पढ़ ली है कि मैसूर भी रहता था अभी, Hyderabad issue also had to be completely settled. No way in the third battle of Panipat it is becoming clear that the British will form the next pan-Indian empire. See, 1764 is when Battle of Buxar is happening. 1763 is when Treaty of Paris and Hyderabad is happening. Mysore issue is yet to be addressed. How on earth in 1761 the third battle of Panipat would establish a pan-Indian British rule? There is no relation. And the British are nowhere directly involved also in this. British का कोई लेना देना नहीं थर्ड बैटल ऑफ पानीपत से. लेकिन थर्ड बैटल ऑफ पानीपत से ये प्रूव हो गया कि मराठास नहीं बनाएंगे the next pan-Indian empire. And if Marathas are not going to make the next pan-Indian empire, then somebody else is going to, or maybe somebody else, nobody is going to. Maybe India would be ruled by a variety of regional states. So that whether there would be a pan-Indian empire and who would form it, if it is formed, is not clear in 1761. वही बात बार बार आ जाती है that 18th century India is a period of fragmentation of political structure rather than having any one pan-Indian. Clear? Yeah.
They could have got supplies from Delhi only.
They could have. देखिए, that is what is the problem, that they could have got supplies from Delhi, but the problem is the central Mughal rulers' reach and ability is extremely limited. That is the problem here. That is why it is actually a battle between the Marathas and everybody else. It is only named that the central Mughal empire is ruling. Rohilkhand is going other way, Awadh is going other way. So there is no actual central Mughal empire which is left. That is there. Huh. What about the Rajput rulers? So what about the Rajput rulers? Firstly, you see that the Rajput rulers at this point of time, what is happening is that the Rajputs partly were involved, the Rajputs partly stayed neutral, and some did side with the central Mughal ruler also. That is that. But predominantly a number of them even stayed neutral at this point of time. अरे क्यों लड़ना? ऐसा तो है नहीं कि Marathas had plundered Rajput territories also a number of times. कोई प्यार मोहब्बत वाली जब आपने पाप का घड़ा बढ़ गया, it's as simple as that. There's nothing else here. You have plundered and raided everybody's territory. Everybody will be happy with your demise soon. Okay, so that is that. Anybody else? You had one.
Can we say that it was a huge revenue loss for Awadh?
Revenue loss for Awadh?
They were also engaged in a battle. The supply for Afghan from Awadh.
This battle is not a very long battle. It's a pretty brief battle. There is no major. Yeah. So this battle is not a very long battle. It is a very brief battle. It is not a very huge drain on Awadh's or anybody's resources except the Marathas who suffered a crushing defeat. That is there.
So, no, I wanted to connect it to related to the Battle of Buxar that our campaign over.
So, why did Maratha wanted to expand only in the northern area? Why didn't they go in southern part of it?
So what she's asking is कि why that Marathas only want to expand north and central India? Why not southern India? क्योंकि मैसूर बैठा है. Okay, there is Hyder Ali. Okay, there is Hyder Ali, which is in 1750s there. Okay, and there is, so actually it's not that Marathas do not have a conflict with Hyderabad or Mysore. They have repeated conflicts with Hyderabad and Mysore. In Mysore there is Hyder Ali from 1750s onwards, and in Hyderabad till 1748 you have whom? Asif Jahan, right? So in Hyderabad as well as in Mysore region, there are relatively strong players already present, and even then they did have conflicts, but they found it easier to expand northwards and get the revenue sharing, and this had been initiated much before itself. So they are building upon it, right? And this was made much before possible by Balaji Vishwanath, who is entering into the revenue sharing treaty with the Mughals. So that is there. Anything else? Clear? So that is there, and that is the significance of the third battle of Panipat also. So you can write down, firstly, we'll come to the timeline later after this. Firstly, you write this much. The third battle of Panipat, give a next heading, the third battle of Panipat and its significance. Technically, you should write it in Roman numerals. Okay. This is Roman numeral only, right? Yes. So third, that's how you should write it, not like this. In the PowerPoint presentation, you may find it like this, but that is because वो PowerPoint लिखते वक्त that symbol is very difficult to arrive at. Okay, so but technically you should write it like this: Third Battle of Panipat. Third Battle of Panipat and its significance. Okay, firstly you write down the cause. A number of battles have been fought. A number of battles have been fought in and around Delhi, particularly Panipat, in and around Delhi, particularly Panipat, driven by multiple factors. Driven by multiple factors. First, Delhi and the Aravali Ridge right, first sentence. Delhi and the Aravali Ridge marked a natural. Delhi and the Aravali Ridge. Delhi marked, or you can write like this also. Delhi marked a natural pass in the Aravali Ridge. कैसे भी लिख सकते हैं आप, Delhi and the Aravali Ridge, या फिर आपको ज़्यादा specific लिखना है तो Delhi marked a natural pass in the Aravali Ridge and was located at the gateway to the northern plains, which were located at the gateway to the northern plains, which were agriculturally productive, with which at so at the gateway to the northern plains, which were agriculturally productive, with surplus revenue, and were often a target of outside powers like Afghan invaders, in bracket you write Ahmad Shah Abdali, in 1761, bracket close, or Babur in 1526, bracket close. Okay, sorry, हाँ, और बाबर इन 1526, या फिर उसको आप चाहें और एलैबोरेट कर दीजिए, बाबर इन 1526 इन द फर्स्ट बैटल ऑफ पानीपत. बड़ी ऑब्वियस सी बात है, हम बैटल ऑफ पानीपत की बात कर रहे हैं, तो ये आपको मैं प्रिज्यूम कर रहा हूँ, ये पता है, नहीं भी पता है तो मेडिवल इंडिया में पता चलेगा कि बाबर लड़े, फिर उनके बाद अकबर लड़े, राइट. 1526 and then 1556, 30 साल बाद अकबर fought again, but that was for a different reason. Okay, so first is Babur, second Akbar fights, okay, briefly 30 years after that, and then you see another couple of centuries later there is the third battle of Panipat. Okay, so 1526 in the first, or Babur in 1526 in the first battle of Panipat against, चाहे तो आप लिख दीजिए, Babur in 1526 against the Lodi dynasty. If you want to write, you can. If you don't want to, that's also fine. Babur in 1526 against the Lodi dynasty. Okay. Next point you must focus on is Delhi had historically been the major seat of power in North India, and thus saw many attempts to capture it and assert control over North India or northern plains, that's also fine, to assert control over northern plains. For example, Akbar's attempt in 1556 to retake or to reinstate or to retake, whatever you want to write. Reinstate control over Delhi in the Second Battle of Panipat. The Second Battle of Panipat. Okay? Third point, you write. As the Marathas, third point you write, as the Marathas sought northward, expansion, as the Marathas sought northward expansion towards north and central India, their economic interests came in a direct conflict with the Afghan invaders, looking forward to plunder the same regions. This triggered the third battle of Panipat. So this is the part where we have discussed why so many battles were fought in Panipat, right? Now you write about the third battle of Panipat, what happened in the war. Okay, the third battle, next paragraph. Okay, no, we have discussed this ends. The next, you can give a next heading. Okay, the third battle of Panipat. The third battle of Panipat saw the combined forces of the Afghan invaders in bracket you write Ahmad Shah Abdali, close the bracket. The Awadh rulers in bracket you write Shujauddaulah, and Rohilkhand join hands together against the Maratha forces fighting on behalf of the central Mughal rulers on behalf of the central Mughal rulers with whom they shared revenue arrangements or revenue collection or revenue sharing arrangements also, you can say, with whom they shared revenue arrangements like Chauth, etc. Okay. Impact, now you write. First, the war imposed a major military setback upon whom? Marathas, who lost 50,000 troops, and half HALF, half, 50%, and half of their military generals in the war. This has been a matter of debate, that what was the total troop strength, and estimates vary. I have given you the lowest estimate, that 50,000 troops were killed in the war. By some accounts, even it was more than that.
It was almost 1 lakh.
तो मैं वही बोल रहा हूँ कि हमारे पास अर्नब गोस्वामी नहीं है, who can tell us authoritative figure, who is the voice of either Marathas or the nation, right? So what were the exact troop strength, we don't know. But there have been estimates on the basis of number of historians as well as a number of accounts of the war. So they vary, but we have taken the lowest common denominator. Okay, that is there. Now, so basically you're writing that it was of half the military generals in the war. This, please write in, this busted the myth of Maratha invincibility. This busted the myth of Maratha invincibility This busted the myth of Maratha invincibility and was a major blow to Maratha prestige in the region. Second, the war in many ways sealed the fate of Maratha Empire from which it failed to recover completely. It is often argued that the third battle of Panipat ruled out the possibility of the establishment of a pan-Indian empire. Ruled out the possibility of establishment of a pan-Indian Maratha empire. Clear? Everybody? ठीक है? हिस्ट्री में मजा आ रहा है नहीं यार? आ रहा है लेकिन मजा आते आते फिर बीच में ब्रेक आ जाता है. So basically what you see is that this is one thing. Now let's discuss the Anglo-Maratha wars. ये ज़्यादा इंटरेस्टिंग है ना? इसमें क्योंकि कहानी के मुख्य किरदार ब्रिटिश इनकी भी एंट्री है ना? So basically, and now we'll complete the timeline, okay? But let's first understand, then we'll complete. Now, what you see in the three Anglo-Maratha wars is that from your examination point of view, if they want to give you a question, they will give you a question directly on the causes of Anglo-Maratha wars and their significance, okay? Or they will give you a statement like this. For example, the Anglo-Maratha wars reflected the inability of the Marathas to resolve their internal political differences. Discuss. Or the Anglo-Maratha wars were caused by the inability of the Maratha rulers to resolve their internal political differences. Discuss. So they'll give you a statement and ask you to discuss the relevance of this statement. Okay. So basically that is a way of asking ki kya hai the cause of Maratha wars specifically in this context. Okay. That is there. So let's first understand, then we'll write down. So basically there were three wars. One was fought from 1775 to 1782. The other was fought from 1803 to 1805, and the third was fought from 1817 to 1890. So what is happening is that in the first battle, in the first war, which is happening in this region, you see what is the dispute, what leads to the war is again a succession dispute over Peshwaship. The succession dispute happens over Peshwaship how? That there are two individuals. There is Narayan Rao and there is Raghunath Rao. Game of Thrones begins. That Raghunath Rao was the uncle of Narayan Rao. Narayan Rao was the young Peshwa, okay, who was appointed in 1775, and Raghunath and Narayan Rao's Peshwaship was supported by the Holkars, the Scindias as well as the Bhosles. Everybody supported Narayan Rao's Peshwaship. Why? Because he is young and he can be easily influenced and controlled. So rather than being controlled by the Peshwa, it would be easier to control the Peshwa if he was young and inexperienced, right? And so that is there. However, and so they supported the Peshwaship of Narayan Rao. However, Raghunath Rao says ki, nahi, I will be the next Peshwa. Raghunath Rao got Narayan Rao assassinated and declared himself that he would, and he is also from the Peshwa family, and Peshwa clan has become hereditary, right? So he takes a claim to become the next Peshwa by assassinating Narayan Rao. But then what happens? What happens is that Holkar, Scindia and Bhosles are not happy. So they decide to attack Raghunath Rao. But Raghunath Rao escapes. Raghunath Rao escapes, and then the British already had a trading presence in Bassein region. The Bassein region is from where you see is Bombay city located. Okay, that the Salsette and the Baroch region. Sorry, okay, not saying Bassein. Sorry, in the Salsette region. Sorry. Salsette region is where you see is what? Bombay city located today. So the British already had, or Mumbai city located today. So the Salsette region was already where the British had certain trading presence. Okay, and in the Salsette region, Raghunath Rao approaches the British East India Company already in the Salsette region and asks and approaches them for assistance. Assistance for what? For tackling the Holkar, Scindias and Bhosles. And he sought the help of the British, and the British said, we are happy to help. We are here anyways to help you only. So we are happy to help you, but you should also help us. And basically the British said, okay, we will provide protection to you from the Holkars, the Scindias and Bhosles. We will restore you to Peshwaship, but in return we should be granted more extensive trading privileges in the region, not just limited to the Salsette region, but even beyond that in other areas also. Okay, so Raghunath Rao says, okay, whatever you want, firstly save my life, then to kuch ho paega, right? So the British said, okay, we'll save you, and this is what triggers the battle. Going after the Raghunath Rao, it now triggers a battle between the Maratha Sardars and the British. Okay, so British are clearly intervening in the domestic matter within the domestic succession dispute. They have anyways learnt it. अभी तक तो बहुत बार करके आ गए बहुत सारी जगहों पे. Hyderabad you have done this, Bengal they have already done this, right? So Bengal and Hyderabad they have already done this. So by now they are anyways experts. Right, so they said, okay, so this is what is happening. Then, what happens beyond this? What happens beyond this is that as this fighting is going on, it starts in 1775, you see that Holkar, Scindias and Bhosles, they are brought together by, there is no strong Peshwa. To keep all of them together, there is the emergence of another individual Fadnis, Nana Fadnis. Fadnis was not a Peshwa. Fadnis was not a Peshwa, but he was also a member of the Maratha court. And he rose to the occasion and forged links between the Holkar, Scindias and Bhosles and kept them united in the fight against the British. Okay, and the British now faced a combined and a joint Maratha offensive, that too within the backyard of the Marathas. So anyways, this whole fighting is happening within the Maratha territories, the areas which are already in their direct administrative control. And the Marathas also have expertise in guerrilla warfare, the strategy for which is suitable in this region. ये तो इनके इलाके की बात है, पानीपत नहीं है. Okay, so this is their area which they know very well, where they have administrative control, where they have expertise in guerrilla warfare, and the British find it difficult to deal with the Marathas. Both the sides tried to reach a settlement in 1776 also, in the Treaty of Purandar. You don't need to remember it, but there was an attempt to strike a deal. The Maratha Sardar said to the British, what do you want? You want trading privileges? We'll give you trading privileges. Just get out of the way. Okay? The British said, yes, we want trading privileges, but don't kill Raghunath Rao. It is now partly a matter of prestige of the East India Company, because if they now defect away from Raghunath Rao and strike a deal directly with Marathas, it will do what? It will compromise the credibility of the East India Company. कोई deal ही नहीं sign करेगा आगे से. So in that context, the British insist that Raghunath Rao must not be killed, but the Maratha Sardars say, no, यही तो हमें करना है. So they do not reach a conclusive treaty. There is a indirect treaty which both the sides, there is an inconclusive treaty. They signed the treaty to bring about a ceasefire, but it does not hold. And again war resumed in 1776 itself. Now in this war is going on 1776, 1777, 78, 79. The British are unable to defeat the Marathas, and in 1779 there is a key battle, that is the Battle of Vadgaon. In the Battle of Vadgaon in 1779, Nana Fadnis imposed a major defeat on the British. In the Battle of Vadgaon in 1799, the Maratha forces led by Fadnis imposed a major defeat on the British. The British now are agreeing to a reconciliation again, getting in a reconciliatory mood. The British realize it is perhaps not that easy and this is not the opportune time. The British are willing to backtrack, and the Marathas also have been fighting wars for 4 or 5 years now. They are also looking for a compromise. The British are also looking for a compromise. So the British say, okay, Raghunath Rao will not become the Peshwa, but let him live. Maratha says, okay, then he wants to live or want to go to the Himalayas is his job, as long as he is not the Peshwa. So Fadnis was able to strike a deal, and this comes in the Treaty of Salabai. Remember I told you? The Treaty of Salabai is signed in 1782. In the Salabai Treaty, basically the British and the Marathas, Sardars agreed to cease hostilities in return for certain conditions of both sides being fulfilled. The British agreed to withdraw from the region. Whatever Maratha territories the British had captured in the region, the British would return them to the Marathas, and the British would not interfere in the succession matter of the Marathas from here onwards. They said Raghunath Rao may not be made the Peshwa, it's also okay as long as he is not killed. So that is all that the British agree to. What are the Marathas agreeing to? The Marathas are agreeing to allow the British trading presence in the region, And the Marathas say that we will join hands with you in case if there is any further conflict that breaks out between whom and whom? Mysore and British. In any further conflict that breaks out with Mysore and between Mysore and British, we will side with the British. And that is why 1780 to 1784, remember I told you that the first Anglo-Mysore war is also happening. Sorry, second Anglo-Mysore war is also happening from 1780 to 1784. There is the Anglo or the second Anglo-Mysore war. The Marathas withdraw from the coalition after the Treaty of Salabai with the British. After the Treaty of Salabai with the British, the Marathas withdrew from the coalition with Mysore. And in the third and the fourth war, you see they are siding with whom? British. Right? So with Treaty of Salabai, the British agreed not to interfere in Maratha affairs, and the Marathas agreed to side with British against Mysore in further wars. The Marathas also agreed not to employ any other European except the British, and which was again directed at keeping the French out of the region. तो आपसे prelims में they can ask you a question on the Treaty of Salabai. अब आप बोलेंगे कि सर Treaty of Salabai पे पूछ सकते हैं तो Treaty of पुरंदर पे भी पूछ सकते हैं. देखिए, we expect that they ask questions on major ones, not on anything and everything which is insignificant. Treaty of Purandar is insignificant because it did not hold. The Treaty of Purandar was signed in 1776, but it did not hold. So that's why we don't discuss too much details of it. Just जो treaty बची ही नहीं, उस treaty की significance पढ़ने का क्या मतलब? Right? So the Treaty of Salabai held ground for the next 2 decades. For the next 2 decades, there is no British interference in Maratha affairs, and for the next 2 decades, there is peace between British and Marathas. Why? Why? Because of the leadership of Fadnis. Fadnis, who had negotiated this treaty with the whom? With the British. But Fadnis also was able to keep the Maratha Sardars together. Right? And it was this reason that the Marathas had not lost the first Anglo-Maratha war. Marathas did not lose the first Anglo-Maratha wars. Why? Because they had expertise in guerrilla warfare. This was their backyard. And most importantly, the 3 Maratha Sardars were kept together by Fadnis. They were not fighting amongst each other. Rather, their efforts were directed against the British. And Fadnis is the architect of all of this. And Fadnis, thus, given his role, Fadnis becomes the most important power center in the Maratha Empire. It is neither the king nor the Peshwa. Peshwas were appointed after Fadnis. Peshwas were appointed after 1782 also. But nobody was as powerful in the Maratha structure as was Fadnis. Okay. So Fadnis, so Peshwas were appointed after this also, but even the position of Peshwa was powerless as long as Fadnis was there, because Fadnis exercised all control at the central level. So the new Peshwas which came after this also, they are not in love with Fadnis. Why? Because Fadnis was in a way diluting their authority. So they wanted to kill Fadnis so that the Peshwa would be able to reassert his authority. But killing Fadnis was not very easy. They wanted to so kill Fadnis that Fadnis died a natural death in 1800. Fadnis died a natural death in 1800, and when Fadnis dies, you see, the time is ready for another war. Fadnis dies, and he is the one who keeps the Maratha Sardars together. So what happens after this is the Peshwa at this point of time is whom? Yes. Bajirao II was the Peshwa in 1802. Okay. Name is not that important. What is important is that Bajirao II's Peshwaship is not unanimously supported by all Maratha Sardars. Okay. And you see that the Holkars were opposed to the Peshwaship of Bajirao II. Okay. And thus they started plundering Bajirao II's territories in and around Pune. Okay, around Pune, Bajirao's territories were being attacked by the Holkars. देखिए ये समझिए, मराठा सरदार्स को ये नहीं समझ में आ रहा है कि पूरे सब कॉन्टिनेंट में आग लगी हुई है. British have interfered and intervened in Bengal, in Hyderabad, then in 1799 in Mysore also. But they are more interested कि मैं ही बनूंगा पेशवा. अरे कुछ बचेगा तो बनेंगे आप पेशवा. So there is a complete lack. This is the kind of narrow political leadership which is responsible for the demise of empire. पहले you are not reforming it. The last strong individual after Fadne's demise, you are still not coming to your senses. आपका बस लगा है कि नहीं मैं बनूंगा, मैं बनूंगा, मैं बनूंगा. जैसे राहुल गांधी, मैं बनूंगा ही. कांग्रेस का कुछ हो चाहे ना हो, मैं बनूंगा. So that is there. Now you look at it. It's frankly, it takes a special order of genius to still be India's Prime Minister and have the audacity to consider yourself as the most popular leader for the current Prime Minister, given his policy failures. But when you have a bigger failure like Rahul Gandhi, it makes you look good. That is all there is. The frank reason is that, the frank thing is that, the frank fact is that Mr. Modi's team, Mr. Modi's you know, is more than Mr. Modi's trump card is whom? Is Rahul Gandhi. This is a fact. That and partly also the media is definitely so much under corporate control that you see that there is a deliberate attempt to also, even when he is not wrong, even when he is making the right statements, Rahul Gandhi is often portrayed as a dumb guy. And if he is dumb, then the Prime Minister, current Prime Minister, has repeatedly made statements in the past and even present, where he said in 2012, where is global warming? There is no global warming. ठंड लगती है उन लोगों को, इसलिए वो global warming, global heating की बातें करते हैं. There is no global warming. Okay? Then he is saying biogas ऐसे बनेगी वैसे बनेगी. You have demonetization, which is a simple, which is, I mean, a completely nonsensical policy, but he can run away from all of this. The Rafale deal, the Geo Institute of Eminence, एक से एक है, but he can still run away from it because he also has a Bajirao too. So that is there. Now it is in this context that and this is just to give you a context, that if you look at the magnitude of the Rafale deal and the magnitude of the Bofors, the Rafale deal in terms of sheer value is more than 10 times the Bofors deal. Okay, so it is one of that single order, one of that biggest defense procurement projects in the past 20 years or so. And there is no shred of doubt that there is something or the other shady in the deal. What exactly is there is another matter. Okay, so and still there is no discussion in the media much, primarily because of the corporate control over media. If you do not know this, the Ambani Group holds 80% of, has 80% stakes in, directly or indirectly, in almost all media organizations, and that is why there is no reportage much on this. Okay, and there is only newspapers like Wire, जिनका आगे पीछे कोई नहीं है ना, और that they are the ones who are reporting on this. Okay, and then they will have to face litigation, defamation cases, etc. Right? 500 crore, 1000 crore, 5000 crore, right? Whatever. वो छोड़, मेरा काम नहीं है ये बात करना, वो बाद में कम वापस यहाँ आ जाते हैं. So Bajirao too in 1802 is the one whose Peshwaship is being supported, is being opposed by the Holkars, and the Holkars started plundering Bajirao's territories in and around Pune. Now Bajirao too goes to whom for help? British. Bajirao II says, British, can you please help me? British said, we have already helped everybody else. You are only left. So this is the time to help you out. So in 1802, they say to Bajirao II, we will be rest assured, we will restore your Peshwaship. You don't need to worry about the Holkars. We will tackle them for you. And you will be restored as the Peshwa. There is no threat to your Peshwaship. Just sign the subsidiary alliance first. So, देखिए बाजीराव II को क्या मतलब है? That पहले मेरी पेशवाशिप आए, तो बाजीराव II, हाँ ठीक है, I'll sign subsidiary alliance. So he goes ahead and signs the subsidiary alliance in 1802, and after this, you see there is the Second Anglo-Maratha War, and the British intervene on the side of Bajirao II, and they had to fight the Holkars. The Scindias and the Bhonsles either partly sided or they remained silent. There was no unified Maratha response against the British. There was no unified Maratha response against the British. So what happens? So it is easy for the British to subdue the Holkars. The British subdued the Holkars, and what happens as a result? As a result, there is that within a span of 2 years, the British easily subdue the Holkars and impose a defeat on them, and the Peshwaship of Bajirao II is restored. Okay, that is there. Now, if this is happening, and Bajirao II is entered into what? A subsidiary alliance. But if this was a subsidiary alliance of Bajirao II, what triggered the third war? First war is over Peshwaship of Raghunath Rao. Second war is over Peshwaship of Bajirao II. But what triggers the third war? Pardon? Somebody else's Peshwaship? They were intervening in the, who was the British. Okay, subsidiary alliance you sign, you realize that you lose your authority, influence, and a substantial degree of economic control over your state. So there was a decline in influence of the authority of Bajirao II. Also, the Maratha Sardars recognized and realized that now as the British were increasing their influence in the region, signing the subsidiary alliance with the British is, as the British were increasing their influence in the region after signing the subsidiary alliance with the Peshwa, you see that even this will erode their autonomy. It will erode the autonomy of the Maratha Sardars. So Maratha Sardars also want the British out. Bajirao II also says, let's throw the British out. And by this time, both Bajirao II and the Maratha Sardars have come to the realization कि हाथ जोड़ लो, join hands together and try and overthrow the British. Otherwise, both the Maratha Sardar also loses out, the Maratha Sardars will lose out on their autonomy, and the Bajirao II, anyways with the subsidiary alliance, has become more or less powerless. So they must try to put a final joint effort to throw the British out of the region. And that is why the Maratha Sardars were united under the leadership of Bajirao II, and a final and desperate attempt was made to throw the British out of the region, and that is what triggers the third Anglo-Maratha war, the combined attempt under Bajirao II. But बहुत देर हो चुकी थी. Why? Because the British have anyway surrounded the Marathas from all sides. On top of that, even though Maratha Sardars were united in first war and also in third war, the situation has largely changed by the third war. Why? Because firstly, the British have already subdued all other regions. The British have already, and though this war is still happening in the backyard of the Marathas, the British have learned from the French partly and started recruiting soldiers from local territories. Okay? And the British also included vast number of soldiers from Maratha territories also. Okay? And the British also recruited a vast number of soldiers from Maratha territories, and this is why they had also, the soldiers recruited from the local region had a better knowledge of local terrain, and thus the British found it easier to tackle the Maratha offensive this time around. Okay. Now you've heard of that battle. Which battle? Whose 200th anniversary was celebrated? The Bhima Koregaon. The Battle of Bhima Koregaon happened at this point of time. Okay, 1817 onward, 1818 onwards, uske 200 saal hue, right? And the Battle of Bhima Koregaon basically saw a large number of the soldiers recruited from the Maratha region fighting on behalf of British and imposing a major defeat on the Maratha rulers in the third battle of Panipat. तो देखिए nationalism तो गई तेल लेने. There is no nationalism here. The British are recruiting soldiers from the Bhima Koregaon region. A large number of these soldiers actually, and there's a caste angle, right? That the large number of these soldiers were predominantly from the lower castes. And under the Peshwas were the Brahmins. And the Brahmins, and under the Peshwa rules, under the rule of Peshwas, the Maratha ruling structure exercised widespread discrimination against the lower caste, not recruiting them within the Maratha army. So actually when Shivaji was there, he recruited soldiers from the lower castes in significant numbers. But after Shivaji, when the Peshwas became powerful, they followed a discriminatory policy, not recruiting many soldiers from the lower castes. And the Maratha and the lower caste are not finding any employment opportunity, and the British are willing to recruit them within their army, given their local knowledge and given their prior experience of military. That is why you see that they are joining the British army in large numbers and played a critical role in imposing a defeat on the Marathas in the third battle of, in the third Anglo-Maratha war from 1817 to 1890. So the Battle of Bhima Koregaon exposes the many contradictions within Indian nationalism. If you want to say that there is nationalism here, that is why a number of historians argue that there is no nationalism as such, not just in India. Nationalism is a new concept which is emerging only after 1789-90, not just in India but throughout the world. Napoleon is the first who comes up with these ideas of nationalism, and they are emerging only in 1790s, that too in France and Europe to begin with. They are yet to establish their presence in India, and this is the reason why you have fragmentation of Indian polity, never a establishment of a strong regional alliance against the British, because there is no strong sense of nationalism, right? Every player was trying to see what they could use the British to possibly fend off the other regional adversary, or use the French to fend off the British, or British to fend off the French, etc. Right? Subsidiary alliance also is becoming possible. Why? Because of the disputes between the regional states. Right? The British are saying that we will offer you a military guarantee against attacks from your regional adversaries. So there is no strong sense of nationalism at this point of time, which allows the regional disputes to flare up, and also prevents the formation of any strong regional alliance against the British. Is that point clear? So ultimately, what is the impact of the third Anglo? What is the impact of the Anglo-Maratha wars? The impact of the Anglo-Maratha wars is this, that this is further ending what? That it is the last and the only remaining challenge to the establishment of British rule in India is getting done away with. And now you will see that British will move from subsidiary alliance ideas towards principles of paramountcy. You remember we had written last class, right? The change in slowly the policy of the British with respect to princely states is going to change. Now, after they are telling the Marathas to get into the subsidiary alliance, whom are they going to protect the Marathas from? मराठा से भी सब्सिडरी अलायंस है, हैदराबाद से भी है, एंड मैसूर से भी है, बंगाल में यू आर एनीवेज मेंटेनिंग द रूल, तो किससे प्रोटेक्ट करेंगे? अल्टीमेटली whom will you protect Marathas from anymore with the subsidiary alliance, because you have signed subsidiary alliance with everyone, right? So now they are moving towards the possibility of establishing a direct rule under what was the principle of paramountcy, and we'll come to it later. Okay. Any doubts still here? Anything you want to ask? Huh? And British. Okay. So, yeah, this is a very common question that comes to everybody's mind कि sir, आप बोल रहे हैं that the British, that the Marathas were the ones who prevented the British or who basically imposed a major defeat on the British in the Battle of Vadgaon. Then how come in the Treaty of Salabai the British or all some of the demands of the British are also being met? Actually, what happens is in the Battle of Vadgaon they are defeated, and so that does not mean that in the whole war they are defeated. So in one major battle they are defeated. After this battle they are coming to a reconciliatory position. Okay, and if you look at the provisions of Treaty of Salabai, they are more in favor of Maratha Sardars than in favor of the British. Their core demand of keeping Raghunath Rao out of power is agreed upon, and the British agree to that. Also, whatever territories the British had captured from 1775 to 1799 in the Maratha regions were returned to the British. So in that context, it's not heavily in favor of the British, but the British have only a few demands to keep the French out of the region, which anyways did not have a major presence. And ऐसा भी कुछ प्यार नहीं है Marathas और मैसूर में that Marathas cannot jump out of the alliance with Mysore. So that is there. Okay, so it's not that the treaty is anyways against the core interests of the Maratha Sardars. That is there. Huh. वो बाद में वो सो देखिए, मैं आपको फिर वहीं लेके आता हूँ जहाँ से मैंने क्लास चालू करी थी कि हम उतनी डिटेल में जाएंगे जितना हमारे एग्जाम के काम की है ना. Yes, that as Bengal was the first area where the British established their rule. Bengal was from where the British, from the times of Hastings itself, and even before that, Warren Hastings, and अभी हम आएंगे इस पे बाद में. You know, so basically you see the Bengal was the administrative head. Okay, and as the British maintained port positions and trade positions elsewhere, all other regions were subordinated to Bengal. That is there, है ना. So अब हम हमारे लिए अभी इतना बहुत है that this is the treaty between the British and Marathas कि ये treaty में ये हुआ. That's all, है ना. Any other doubt? The second war is happening where Bajirau's Tools is Peshwaship is being opposed by the Holkars. So on behalf of Bajirao too, it is the British who are fighting the Holkars. That is the. Any other doubt?
Only Holkars.
Predominantly, it was pitting the Holkars against the British. The Scindias and the Bhonsles did not have much of a role to play. That is there. Anything else? Clear? So please, let's first write down. You first complete the timeline. We had left the space for the timeline. 1720, 1740. Huh? Test. You have a test today? Wait. I'll just find out. Firstly, you just write down one question test से. देखिए, मैं जो questions आपको क्लास में बताता रहता हूँ, इनकी सबकी significance है ना. So ऐसे तो आप एक ये लिख लीजिए, मैं टेस्ट का आपका I'll just ask that the Anglo-Maratha Wars, represented the inability of Maratha Sardars to resolve their internal succession disputes or internal political disputes which allowed British interference in the region. In the light of the above statement, discuss the causes of Anglo-Maratha wars. In the light of this statement, discuss the causes of Anglo-Maratha wars. I'll just ask. टेस्ट है क्या? इधर नहीं. आज हम पढ़ा रहे हैं, आप पढ़िए. टेस्ट अगली क्लास में. फिक्स टाइमिंग कर दीजिए. हमेशा डेट बढ़ जाता है. अभी कोई बात नहीं, अभी लिखिए, हम करते हैं. मैं रेगुलर आया करूँ. हाँ, मैं कल भी आऊँगा, मैं परसों भी आऊँगा, मैं नरसों भी आऊँगा, मैं भी हूँ यहीं. आप लिखिए. वी आर राइटिंग. या अच्छा, चलिए अभी मैं थोड़ा सा आंसर के बारे में बता देता हूँ, लिखने के बारे में. आपको क्या याद रखना है, क्या ध्यान में रखना है. The first thing that you should keep in mind about answer writing is that firstly your approach here has to be always to focus on what. देखिए आपके पास 250 words are there. If you start writing answers, you will realize anyhow that what happens is, what is the common thing you people do is कि जैसे अभी ये वाला question है, तो आप पहले introduction लिखेंगे. आप पहले you will start writing in 5-6 lines just to elaborate on what is already written in the statement. That the Marathas had a number of internal disputes and the Marathas failed to resolve these internal disputes, and this was a cause for the decline of the Maratha Empire and allowed the British to increase their influence in the region. The causes of the Anglo-Maratha War were, जो आपने 5 लाइनें ऊपर की खराब करी, that is something that should be directed towards the body of the answer. Because आपके पास body में, if you know the answer, then you will have enough points to put in the body of the answer. हर answer के 3 parts होते हैं, introduction, body and conclusion. Introduction must be short. Introduction must be short, and you don't need to spend much time or space on introductions. You need to focus more on the body of the answer and the conclusion, because it is there where the substantive part of the answer is going to come. What happens is that when you are writing the answer, there is often the thing कि आपको लगता है कि पहले मैं अच्छा इंट्रोडक्शन लिखूं, उसके बाद एक अच्छा बॉडी लिखूं, और उसके बाद मैं एक अच्छा कंक्लूजन लिखूं, राइट. बट व्हाट ऑफन हैपेंस इज कि आप अच्छा इंट्रोडक्शन लिखते हैं अगर, और अच्छा बॉडी लिखते हैं, तो कंक्लूजन गायब हो जाता है, क्योंकि ना टाइम बचता है ना स्पेस. ओके, सो डू नॉट डू दिस मिस्टेक. डू नॉट मेक योर इंट्रोडक्शन ऑफ, इन UPSC GS का पेपर, डू नॉट मेक योर इंट्रोडक्शन ऑफ 5-6 लाइन्स. 2 लाइन्स, मैक्सिमम 3 लाइन्स. इंट्रोडक्शन इससे बड़ा नहीं हो सकता है आपका, क्योंकि आपको फोकस करना है बॉडी ऑफ द आंसर पे. सो दैट इज व्हाई इंट्रोडक्शन मस्ट बी स्मॉल. इफ आई एम से आई गिव दिस क्वेश्चन, राइट, द इंटरनल डिफरेंसेस व्हिच triggered the Anglo-Maratha wars were amply visible during cause of first Anglo-Maratha war and what happened in first. during the second Anglo-Maratha war, what was the cause of the second Anglo-Maratha war and what happened? During the third Anglo-Maratha war and what happened? Focus is on the body. Then in the conclusion में what are the ways of handling a conclusion? Conclusion को handle करने के दो तरीके होते हैं. जो आपने ऊपर लिखा है या तो आप उसी को summarize कर दें. That is थोड़ा हल्का conclusion. अच्छा conclusion or writing a more nuanced conclusion, there is no definite way. It represents your ability and the ability of writing a good conclusion partly depends on your knowledge and your ability and also of crafting it. Okay, तो ये थोड़ा सा strategy of writing आ जाता है वहाँ पे कि conclusion में for example ऐसे, as I just said, that the inability of resolving the internal differences, the absence of a long-term vision of reforming the Maratha Empire, and the absence of any strong sense of nationalism is all what contributed to the decline of the Marathas. And in this way, the last formidable challenge to British expansion in the region gave way. The Marathas, और या फिर आप मैं इसको एक और तरीके से लिख सकता हूँ, the Marathas failed to learn their lessons from the defeat in the third battle of Panipat, failed to reform themselves militarily or administratively. The crisis further deepened with the political disputes, and the decline which started with the third battle of Panipat ended with the third Anglo-Maratha war. तो देखिए एंड कंक्लूजन लिखने के आपके कितने ही तरीके हो सकते हैं, लेकिन एक चीज याद रखिए, कहीं पे भी ये नहीं होना चाहिए that you are compromising on the body. The most important thing is the body of the answer. The second most important thing is the conclusion of the answer. And the introduction is not that important. Okay, why I'm saying important? अगर आप लिख सकते हैं तो the problem that is often faced is the ability to put everything concisely and being able to do all questions. क्या होता है कि नहीं सर जगह है तो अभी तो पहले कॉपी में ही जगह आने लगी है, पहले तो है ना, जाओ लड़के जी ले अपनी जिंदगी, आज लिखना है, ऐसा लिखना है कि एग्जामिनर पढ़े. Often when we, with what expectation you are writing the answer? If you are writing the answer with the expectation that you will give some amazing insight that nobody else has given, it will not happen. There is a reason for this. The questions now have become more and more concise. They demand concise answers. The ability to show knowledge and depth is limited. When it is a 60 marker answer, when there used to be 60 marker questions in UPSC, there was all the time and the space to write a big introduction, a big body and a big conclusion. अब जब 60 marker की जगह 10 marker questions हो गए हैं, तो you have to directly hit the point. You can't write in university styles. हाँ अभी माहौल सज रहा है ना, अभी आपने लिखना चालू किया है, आप पहले 5 लाइंस में तो इंट्रोडक्शन ही लिखेंगे, जब तक आप कंक्लूजन पे आएंगे खत्म हो जाएगी बात. Time and space will end. And what often happens, I've seen copies, so that is why I'm telling, they're very brilliant students who, if they've not done a decent amount of answer writing, you falter in the mains. One of the reasons, for example, क्या होता है, बड़ा practical है, आपके पास 15 or 20 questions are there, okay, and if you have roughly around say 20 questions, you have 8 minutes to write an answer. तो आपने पहले के 5 आंसर लिखे 10-10 मिनट में या 12 मिनट में, है ना. तो अगर आपने 10 मिनट में भी लिखे तो आप, अगर आपने 10 मिनट में भी लिखे तो 50 मिनट हो गया, पहला घंटा खत्म होने आया, आपने 5 लिखे, अगले 2 घंटे में आपको 15 लिखने. तो आप क्या करेंगे, स्पीड बढ़ाएंगे. अब आप स्पीड बढ़ाएंगे तो ना कंटेंट कहीं जा रहा है, कंक्लूजन कहीं जा रहा है, ना आपका बॉडी सही जा रहा है, ना कंक्लूजन सही जा रहा है. आखिरी के आधे घंटे में 5 और लिखने हैं, अब तो बस पेन रुके नहीं. लेकिन that will compromise the ability of your answers, the quality of your answers. The challenge is to give equal time and attention to all the questions. How do you do it? अभी से आपको अगर सीखना है तो ऐसा करिए, अगर आप 5 आंसर लिख रहे हैं या 4 आंसर लिख रहे हैं, घड़ी देखिए, ऐसी वाली मत रखिएगा जिसमें नंबर आते हैं डिजिटल वाली, वैसी रखिए. ट्राई टू सी बिफोर यू स्टार्ट राइटिंग आंसर क्वेश्चन पेपर पे लिख लीजिए साइड में 5 आई स्टार्टेड राइटिंग दिस आंसर. नो नीड टू गेट प्रेशर, टेक प्रेशर कि मैं घड़ी देख रहा हूँ आंसर लिखते हुए 10 हो गया क्या, नहीं. You write your answer, you start on 5:05. Say you are finishing in 5:15. You just write after completing answer कि 5:15 में ये खत्म हो. तो आप ऐसा जब 4-5 बार करेंगे तो आप देख पाएंगे कि are you taking how much time. Okay, so it's slow exercise. There's no need to pressurize yourself too much. पहला एम होना चाहिए आंसर लिख पाना, दूसरा एम होना चाहिए कि टाइम में लिख पाना. मेरे जीवन की सबसे बड़ी प्रॉब्लम ये थी कि मैं लिखता तो था बहुत दिल लगा के, पर मेरा पेपर ही नहीं खत्म होता था कभी. So I was of the old school. When I started writing, I was of the old school. हम पहले 60 मार्क कर लिखते थे, फिर हमें 30 हुआ, फिर वो 10 हो गया. So हमारा पेपर ही नहीं खत्म होता था. पेपर ही नहीं खत्म होगा तो सिलेक्शन होगा नहीं, खत्म बात. However good you may be, if you are not finishing the paper on time, giving equal weightage, time and attention to all questions to the extent possible, you are killing your own chances of getting selected. एक और myth ये भी मैं क्लियर कर दूं आपको कि अगर आप ये सोच रहे हैं कि सर आप अभी वो नहीं सोच पाए जो मैंने सोचा है, that there are 20 questions, even if my 5 questions I don't attempt, even if I 5 questions I don't attempt, 15 I will attempt एकदम जबरदस्त. Okay, so 12.5 marker questions are there, 20 questions are there, 250 marks is there. I will attempt 15 only, लेकिन 15 में ऐसा लिखूंगा कि सीधे गोल्ड मेडल आएगा. ठीक है? That out of these 12.5 marker questions, I will write very good answers on all the questions. और ज़्यादा नहीं, कुछ नहीं तो 8 नंबर तो मिल ही जाएंगे एक क्वेश्चन में, है ना. तो 15 into 8 is 120, है ना. और वो तो जब तो है ना 5 छोड़ दिए, है ना, तो 50% तो आपका ऐसे ही आ रहा है. 3/4 पेपर करके ही आपके 50% नंबर आ रहे हैं. किसके आते देखें आज तक. It doesn't happen. Why? Because actually I'll tell you how scoring works. Obviously nobody has a concrete idea, but one thing you have to understand that पहली बात, this is not physical sciences that anybody will get 100 marks on writing one answer however perfectly you may have written it. Okay. Secondly, what happens is that out of scoring out of 12.5, you write the average answer where you put all the points and put some conclusion, you will get 6. You will write an exceptional answer, you can get 8. But आपने ये तो वही बात हुई कि मैं 15 बॉलें ही खेलूंगा और हर पे छक्का ही मारूंगा. It never happens in the answer sheet that you will be able to write 15 exceptional answers, attempt 15 questions and all of them are exceptional. If it is possible with you, you are an exception. And yes, exceptions are there. But for the majority, it is very difficult. Rather, आप ये करने के बजाय अगर आप ये कर सकते हैं that out of 20 questions, even 18 you do well. And well I am meaning only by a 6 marker, you are in a better chance of doing this than doing 120 by 15 करके. Okay, so in that context, that is why देखिए आप ये सब करने के बाद समझ में आता है ना. जब मेरे को लगता था तो मेरे को यही लगता था, अरे क्या लिखा है मैंने. I used to read my answer by writing the mains only. क्या लिखा है. And I'll tell you very practical what happened is I'm telling you, a good peer group is always a good peer group. If you have 2 or 3 people who are very serious like you, it is a very big game changer in the exam. Preparation also, you can learn from each other's mistakes, you can contribute to each other. आपने कैसे लिखा, मैंने कैसे लिखा, आपने कैसे लिखा, हम तीनों ने एक दूसरे का ऐसे पढ़ लिया. So we get points, we can also give a constructive criticism कि these all things you could have added, this way you could have written. It opens your mind also, it opens the other person's mind also. और आपने ये लिखा एक ही ऐसे लेकिन आपके 3 ऐसे तैयार हो गए. तो ये बहुत लोग करते हैं और जितना अच्छा 2 या 3 लोगों का ग्रुप है, the better are the chances. So I also had this group, okay, and we used to live together. So I used to live with 2 people and both of them are in the services right now. One is an IPS, other is an IRS. So we used to live together and we used to study together. वही cook, वही खाना, वही पढ़ाई, and so we prepared. So one got selected, then but did not get rank, so he gave again. So in one of the mains examination we were writing, I was sitting at the back, my other friend was sitting in front of me and another in front of him. We had deliberately planned this to see whether something can be done. Right, so we filled the form at the same time. In the prelims it doesn't happen, it's all very randomization. So we did not get, we were in the same room in the prelims but not in front of each other. Then in the mains we filled Jaipur as a center. That we will all definitely, वहाँ पे कितने लोग आ जाएंगे हमारे बीच में. We all got through the prelims and the mains आगे पीछे, तीनों. This was my moment of reconciliation because in that exam both of them got selected and I did not. I was fairly confident that I'll also get selected. But the problem was they would always finish the paper 5 minutes before and I would keep writing. Every paper I left 3 or 4 questions, but I was still confident. I still got the call, but still the margin, आपका कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता है कि आप इंटरव्यू देने का कोई उपलब्धि नहीं है जीवन में, क्योंकि अगर if you're not scoring much above the cutoff, you will be cut off in the interview, है ना? And that is there. So I realized that this is a problem. I tried to work on it, but at times when we are not very serious about recognizing our flaws and correcting them, you keep making the same flaws. Then मेरे 2 और दोस्त आए, उन्होंने भी मेरे साथ पढ़ाई की, एक फॉरेस्ट में एक और पुलिस में. फिर मैंने बोला अब जीवन में बहुत हुआ कि जब खुद का ना हो तो दुख होता है. Right. So one thing is there, one should learn from one's failures. तो मेरे में enlightenment आ गया था ना, मैंने I stopped in 2012. जीवन में और भी चीजें हैं करने के लिए. Okay. So one of the things is that one should understand that preparing is one thing, writing is another, and fulfilling the demand of the exam is another. You can't write like a university answer that you will write very elaborately and you will write very longish answers. You have to hit the point as fast as possible. Okay. And that happens only when you focus on the body and the conclusion. Introduction as short as possible. Even no introduction can work. If you ask you the causes, or suppose I ask you the causes, discuss the, so there was this question, right? The fragmentation of 18th century India witnessed the fragmentation rather than collapse. I can give the introduction. 18th century India lacked a pan-Indian empire and saw the emergence of many regional powers because, khatam. You come to the body and the conclusion. That is something that you need to learn. Okay. So, and आपकी अगर अच्छी writing skills हैं, वहाँ का output आपको सबसे ज़्यादा मिलेगा essay में. So I had very good writing skills and I scored very well in essays, 140s consistently out of 250. Okay. But again I'm telling you, if you want the exam to work according to your writing skills, it will not happen. The sooner and the better you realize that, the better it is. आपको rules of game के according खेलना है. Game के rule आपके according नहीं बनेंगे. That is that. Okay. So keep that in mind. Let's write. चलिए अभी लिखेंगे तो फिर देर हो जाएगा. So keep this in mind and keep this mind in writing as well. और थोड़ा सा monitor करिए आप कैसे लिख रहे हैं. Don't worry to write the perfect answer in first go. Nor don't you worry about the time also right now. Start writing और धीमे धीमे सब कुछ होगा. It is a process. You learn from your mistakes. Thank you.